1833, soldiers digging a mound in Chesterville, Ohio, unearthed a human skeleton. It measured over 3 meters tall. The bones were sent to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. They were never seen again. This was not an isolated incident. Over 100 similar discoveries were reported across North America, South America, Europe, and the Middle East throughout the 1800s and early 1900s. Giant skeletons, buried in ancient mounds, wearing armor that no normal human could have lifted. All of them disappeared. And the Bible told us this would happen, because the Bible told us these giants existed in the first place. They were called the Nephilim. And if you have heard that name before, it was probably dismissed as mythology, allegory, or ancient superstition. But the Bible does not treat them as myth. It names them, it describes them, it records their wars, and it says they were the reason God sent the flood. Tonight, we go deeper into the Nephilim than any Sunday school ever would, and we ask the question that mainstream science refuses to answer. Where is the evidence, and why has it vanished? In the next 16 minutes, we are going to cover what the Bible actually says about the Nephilim and where they came from, the archaeological evidence from every continent, the role of the Smithsonian Institution in what researchers call the greatest cover-up in archaeological history, the connection between the Nephilim and Noah's flood, and the question that no scientist wants to answer on record. If these giants never existed, why does every ancient civilization on Earth have stories about them? Let us start with what the Bible actually says. Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. This is one of the most debated passages in all of Scripture. It says, "When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown, heroes of old, men of renown." The Bible is not describing monsters here. It is describing a recognized, named class of beings that everyone in the ancient world knew about. But the Nephilim do not disappear after the flood. They reappear in Numbers chapter 13, one of the most fascinating passages in the entire Old Testament. Moses sends 12 spies into Canaan to scout the land before the Israelite invasion. When they return, 10 of the 12 are terrified. Here is what they report, word for word. "We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Grasshoppers. These were trained soldiers, military scouts, and they said they looked like grasshoppers next to the inhabitants of Canaan. This is not poetic language. This is a military intelligence report. And then there is Goliath. Everyone knows the story, but most people do not know the details. 1 Samuel chapter 17 says Goliath stood 6 cubits and a span tall. Depending on the cubit measurement used, that is between 2.7 and 3.2 meters, nearly 10 feet tall. But Goliath was not alone. 2 Samuel chapter 21 describes 4 other giants who fought against David's warriors. One of them had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. These were not isolated individuals. They were a family, a tribe, a remnant of a larger race that had been systematically eliminated, but not entirely. Now, let us talk about the physical evidence. And here is where things get uncomfortable for mainstream science. Throughout the 1800s, as settlers moved across North America and archaeologists began excavating ancient mounds, a pattern emerged. Giant human remains were being found everywhere. The Smithsonian Institution, founded in 1846, began receiving these bones from excavation sites across the country. Newspaper after newspaper reported the discoveries. The New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, Scientific American. These were not tabloids. These were the most respected publications of their era, reporting on what trained excavators were finding. The most concentrated discoveries came from the burial mounds of the Adena and Hopewell cultures, ancient civilizations that built enormous earthworks across Ohio, Indiana, and surrounding states centuries before European contact. Excavations of these mounds consistently reported skeletons of unusual size, often accompanied by artifacts too large for normal humans, oversized tools, weapons, and ceremonial objects. Some of the skulls were described as having double rows of teeth. Many showed signs of cranial deformation that researchers still cannot fully explain. And virtually all of them were sent to the Smithsonian, and virtually none of them were ever put on public display. In 2015, a satirical website published a fake story claiming the Smithsonian had admitted to destroying giant skeletons. That fake story spread everywhere and gave mainstream media the perfect excuse to dismiss the entire topic as conspiracy theory. But here is what is real. In 1916, a Smithsonian ethnologist named Ales Hrdlicka wrote extensively about the need to standardize the classification of ancient American remains, and specifically argued against sensationalist reporting of unusual skeletal finds. Researchers have since used Freedom of Information Act requests to ask the Smithsonian about giant skeleton catalogs from the 19th century. The responses have been incomplete, delayed, or denied. We cannot prove destruction, but we can document a pattern of non-disclosure that is at minimum deeply unusual for a public institution. And this is not only an American phenomenon. In 1911, miners in Lovelock Cave in Nevada found mummified remains of red-haired people significantly larger than modern humans. The Paiute tribe had oral traditions about these beings for generations. In Turkey, archaeologists at Göbekli Tepe found carvings of beings far larger than the humans depicted alongside them. In Sardinia, the Nuragic culture left behind stone structures that modern engineers say required strength beyond normal human capacity. In Egypt, ancient paintings show figures of wildly different sizes interacting. Some scholars say this is artistic convention. Others say it reflects a real hierarchy of physical size. Every ancient civilization, every continent, the same story. Now let us connect the Nephilim to something you already know: Noah's flood. Because when you read Genesis 6 carefully, the flood and the Nephilim are in the same passage. Verses 1 through 4 describe the Nephilim. Verse 5 immediately says, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time." Verse 7, "So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created." The connection is direct and intentional. The Nephilim were not a footnote before the flood story. They were the reason for the flood story. And here is the detail that most Bible readers miss completely. In Genesis 6:9, God describes why he chose Noah. The Hebrew text says Noah was tamim in his generations. That word is usually translated as blameless or righteous. But the root of tamim in Hebrew refers to physical completeness, wholeness, freedom from blemish or corruption. Many scholars, including some within mainstream theology, have argued that this phrase is not primarily about Noah's moral character. It is about his genetic lineage. Noah's bloodline had not been corrupted by the Nephilim interbreeding. He was, in the original sense of the word, pure. and that is why he and his family were the ones preserved. But here is the question that Genesis does not fully answer. If the flood destroyed the Nephilim, why do we find them again in Numbers, hundreds of years later? Genesis 6:4 actually hints at this. It says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. Afterward. The text itself acknowledges a post-flood presence. The Book of Enoch, which we covered in Video 1, offers an explanation. The spirits of the destroyed Nephilim became the disembodied entities that would go on to harass and corrupt humanity in a different form. The physical giants were eliminated, but their spiritual counterparts remained. This is, according to Enoch, the origin of what we call demons. And this explains something that has puzzled historians for centuries. Why does every ancient culture on Earth have a race of giants in their mythology? The Greeks had the Titans and the Gigantes. The Norse had the Jotnar. The Mesopotamians had the Anunnaki. The Hindus had the Asuras. The Native Americans had the Stonecoats and the giants of oral tradition. The Polynesians have stories of giant builders who constructed their megalithic structures. Every culture, every continent, every era, the same archetypal story of a race of powerful, semi-divine giants who once walked the earth and were eventually destroyed or driven away. The simplest explanation is also the most uncomfortable one. They are all remembering the same event. So why does mainstream science reject all of this? The official answer is that the evidence does not meet scientific standards, that the newspaper reports were exaggerated, that bones were misidentified, that the skeletons were never properly documented. And to be fair, some of that criticism is valid. The 19th century was not known for rigorous archaeological methodology. Hoaxes existed, exaggeration was common. But here is the problem with the official dismissal. It requires you to believe that hundreds of independent newspaper reporters, archaeologists, and local officials across multiple countries, over a period of more than a century, all made the same mistake, or all lied. The statistical probability of that is extremely low. But the deeper reason for the suppression, if suppression is what happened, is what the evidence would imply. If giant humanoid beings once existed on Earth, beings that the Bible directly links to unions between divine entities and humans, then the implications for our understanding of human origins are staggering. It means the story of humanity is not what we were taught. It means there were interventions in human biology from outside our species. It means the ancient texts that describe these interventions were not myths. They were history. And that challenges not just science, but every religious and secular narrative about what humans are and where we came from. Here is one final data point that I want to leave you with. In 2014, a group of researchers filed a lawsuit against the Smithsonian Institution under the Freedom of Information Act, demanding the release of all records related to giant skeletal remains received between 1880 and 1940. The Smithsonian's legal response acknowledged the existence of records from that period related to unusually large human remains. But the institution argued that releasing those specific records would require an unreasonable amount of staff time to compile. The case was eventually dropped. The records were never released. The bones, if they still exist, are still in a warehouse somewhere. Or they are not. Let us bring this all together. The Bible describes the Nephilim in at least 4 separate books: Genesis, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Samuel. They are not metaphor. They are described as specific, named, physically present beings. Archaeological evidence from the 19th century suggests that remains consistent with these descriptions were found across North America and beyond. Those remains were collected by the Smithsonian Institution and have not been made available for public study. Every ancient civilization on Earth independently preserves the memory of a race of giants. And the book of Genesis links their existence directly to the reason God sent the global flood. This is either the greatest coordinated fiction in human history, or it is one of the most suppressed truths. Here is the question I want to leave you with tonight. If the Nephilim were real, and the evidence suggests they may have been, then every ancient text that describes them deserves to be taken seriously, including the ones that describe what happened to their spirits after the flood, including the ones that describe what role they play in end times prophecy. Because the Bible does not just say the Nephilim existed in the past. Jesus himself, in Matthew 24, says that the days before his return will be just like the days of Noah. And the days of Noah, as we now know, were defined by the presence of the Nephilim. Something to think about. Next time on The Ancient Verdict, we investigate the real Satan, not the red-horned creature from medieval paintings. The original biblical Satan, a being so different from what you were taught that it will change how you read every verse in the New Testament. That video drops on Friday. Subscribe right now if you are not already, because this is the series that mainstream Christianity does not want you to watch from beginning to end. Leave in the comments, do you believe the Nephilim were real? I read every single one. See you Friday.